Love, love, love till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, and our guest is Gerard Pereira. He's been the Assistant Director and Assistant Production Manager of Man of Assisi, a musical that's just been on last weekend. And he also would like to share some of his story. And he's been one of the actors in the musical, one of the really strong chorus members. Welcome, Gerard. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, I know that music has been a passion for yours, and to get to know you better, we'd love to hear a song that you have composed.
Well, a song that I've composed is much later in life, but this one that I'm going to sing is like a self-introductory song, which of course I learned from my monitor in school, you see, and that's where I actually last acted. So till I acted in Man of Assisi. So I'll just sing that song because I come from India, you know, and it's got something to do with my Indian accent and what have you. So I'll sing it for you. I'm a belly Indian babu. In the Mumbai I was born, eating rice and drinking the curry till my belly come out like a ball. Hello all my audience, do you like my art? If you like my art, then let's make a start. My name is Popsy Purr, but they call me a pop singer. popsypurr@gmail.com is where you can contact me on. That's my little song.
Oh, that's lovely. It really, it's really has comedy in it, and it's funny and it's sweet.
It's like a fun starter. You know, just people are saying, who are you? What are you? So I've got something to tell them if they want to contact me. But yeah, of course, I'm on Facebook and
cool.
email and YouTube and everything.
Oh,
in a small way,
fantastic.
but
So your this sort of your music that brought you to the Man of Assisi. Tell me how you got involved.
Yes, well, I've been an engineer actually all my life, but I always had a music career and always had a music passion and the audio visuals and everything and the arts and cable television and a lot of things. But being jobless for the last few years, because jobless I would say, not in my engineering career as such, not getting work with my engineering career because government budget's going down.
Ah, right.
I was kind of jobless, and so we saw this little article in church about the play, and Geraldine, your namesake, because I'm Gerard, you're Geraldine. It, you know, he struck a note, you see.
Ah.
So I said, oh, Geraldine 343@gmail. I said, oh, that's good, I must contact her. Of course, but it was not me who actually saw the ad. It was my wife who saw the ad. And she thought like, okay, you're sitting at home doing nothing. You like music. Why don't you go and contact them? She showed me the ad while in the, in the church pews. And we left the newsletter there, and we came home and forgot the newsletter.
Ah.
And then she had to go to Auckland to see our daughter in New Zealand.
I see.
And so I was at home alone, and I said, oh, I must pursue that ad in the church. So I drove back to the church.
Did you?
During the week. This was, of course, a weekend mass. We saw the ad. And went back to church, and went to the church was closed. So I went to the office and asked the office person, can I have that newsletter? So she said, oh, the church is closed. Can you come another time? Oh, you felt like, okay, it's... Then suddenly she thought, if I give you the key of the church, will you open the church and take the newsletter from the church? That was very empowering, you see. That was a spirit moving, I can say. And that is what I believe. That was the movement of the spirit that drove her to do that. Because otherwise I would have not gone back, and I would never have met you, Geraldine. I went back into the church, got the newsletter, closed the church for the first time in Australia.
Right.
I used to be a sacristan in India, where I used to open and close the church many, many times, but this was the first time in Australia. And so I took the newsletter home, sent you an email, and you called me for the audition. I remember it was April 6th, if I'm not mistaken. I remember the date too. Sorry. And then I came for the audition, and I met you, and Dad was very impressed, and he said, oh, yep, I'll give you a role, and he made me do a few things on that first day. But what I want to share is about the movement of that lady in the church, the office lady in church who gave me the key to open the church. That was the power of the Spirit that brought us together. And that is relationship. And we have got a much bigger relationship through God. And that is what I'm really impressed about. Because there's no coincidence in life. It is all about God incidents. He works for His greater purpose through us. And he uses us as instruments. And I think the song, Francis Wesley's song, "Make me a channel of your peace, make me an instrument of your peace." And that's what we are working to. And I feel that just joining this play has added so much of value and so much of insight into life that, we can share God's given talent for His glory is just awesome.
And it's great that you're open to the Spirit, because I think I've heard from some books or friends that God always speaks, but it's as whether or not we hear Him or we take the time to hear Him.
Yeah. The important thing is always understanding that at every point in turn in your life story, that He's at work. And that's why I want to write a book and call it My Story for His Glory. And that makes a lot of sense, because every person has a story. But if they don't use it for God's glory, it's an incomplete story. It doesn't have any, it doesn't have weight, because our story is not a personal story that we take with us, we make money, or we kind of live the life and we say, oh, we're so happy. No. We leave it all behind. It is His story that actually gives glory to every generation that has come by for millions of years, isn't it? So the joy of knowing that the little that we do in this short span of life is the beauty of sharing God's story. And I think Francis of Assisi was a good example, of course. And most importantly, after I met Dad and have started working with Dad, and he's given me the opportunity of being an assistant director, I think those opportunities are like all God's hands.
Yes.
Because there's no coincidence, like I said. God has been working through the whole play. And the Spirit, like yesterday after the show, 2 ladies came up and they said, "There's something. I could see something on all your faces. And there was something which I cannot explain, but it was such a blessing. I'm ready to come and be with this group for anything that you all will do."
Wow.
That was a testimony.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
That is God speaking to us, to carry on, And don't just lose heart or lose, lose faith, with all the arrangements. That's, like I said, when I was even doing my part, I told you about Dad's tip to me.
Yes.
I was getting carried away with all the actors not doing their things and they're doing their own things, and I'm thinking of my role. But Dad just said, "You're talking to the audience. Think about them." And that is what God wants us to do. He wants to talk to the audience. He wants us to be instruments to pass His message for His glory.
Yes, that's
not to be
fantastic.
concerned about the things around us and about our personal selves, but of course His glory. So if you look at God and just keep Him as our point that we're working to, that is the ultimate goal in life, I think.
Yes, we might have to go for a break now.
Okay.
But we'll get back with that story.
Sure. Thank you, Geraldine.
We'll be back in a few minutes after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, and our guest is Gerard Pereira. He's the Assistant Director and the Assistant Production Manager of Men of Assisi musical, and he also has been acting too. Welcome back, Gerard.
Thank you, Geraldine.
You've been talking about some of the feedback from the audience. I know there's more that you would like to tell us about.
Of course, of course. The important thing is the story of the play. And of course, it's your dad, John Lee, who wrote the play, and how his wisdom and his humility and his great understanding of the new faith that he has agreed to follow, Catholicism. I didn't know that Dad was not a Catholic from his birth.
Yes.
And that was very inspiring also. And then he has this song in the play, "Conversion is Not So Easy." And you realize he's talking about the Man of Assisi play, where St. Francis wants to convert the Sultan, who's a Muslim at the time, into a Christian. And then he tells his story, but he has written the song. I'm sure he's got something to do with that song, with his own life and his own life, which your dad's life, is an inspiration to me and my family. And that's what the lady said yesterday. Whatever you do, we would like to follow you. Please let us
Wow.
know. And I think that would be a great confirmation for Dad's story and his life story, that, you know, he'd be so happy to hear just one person say that. And
Yeah,
that's what
that's
we live for.
beautiful.
Because God actually reveals himself through us. And I think that is a living testimony of that, you know, that his faith and his trust in God at that age, he's 84 now, is fantastic. He's a living. I thought at my age, I thought, oh, it's the end of my life. What have we got left? After going through so many years of business and, you know, everything we've done, sung on stage, TV, done
Really?
everything.
Oh, wow.
I thought it's the end, but I think this is a beginning. Because
Yes.
this play has brought a lot of inspiration to me and my family. And,
It's beautiful.
and I think God is using Dad as an instrument, your dad as an instrument to this whole life that we all live in God's glory. Because God is the end all of everything, as I said in the previous. If we keep him as our focus in life, everything else falls in place. It's not the money you earn. We are only receptacles, you know, or vessels that he uses to give of his gifts that he has blessed us with. That is what we are. We come into the world empty, and he fills us up with blessings.
Yes.
And all those blessings have to pour out from us. And that is what your dad is proving, you know. And Francis of Assisi is talking about helping the poor. That is exactly a message. Because everyone who is rich, if you are rich and you just hold on to your riches, what sense does it make in life?
Yes.
All the materialistic world, you know, it doesn't make sense. Just holding on to everything, you know, you look at your wardrobes, you look at your purse of gold or whatever,
Yes.
and you hold it on. It's no use if there are poor in the world, isn't it?
It's true.
God's blessings have to pour out to everyone, and that is the message of the play. And I think that Francis of Assisi has lived his life very perfectly from the example of Jesus. And so he made a very important mark in his time with the Pope, and convinced the Pope that, you know, his Friars Minor that he started
Yes.
as a Francis. So all those things that Dad has written about, and I'm sure he's read the story of Francis and written his play, but to bring us as actors out, you know, and people involved in the play to act that life out is an empowerment of working for God.
Yes.
And that is what I believe makes a lot of sense in our
Yes.
lives. So as much as you work, in whatever field you work, you go to work, if I can take that part of that play with me, that can I convince them that, yeah, I'm acting, but I'm acting for God. And that's what gives me the joy. Because I remember at one of my workplaces, somebody says, I see you, Gerard, you're a very happy person, you know, you go around, but you're so cheerful. What's that in you?
Yes.
And I didn't know what was his faith. I don't know where he came from. I said, I'm Catholic. Oh, what's Catholic?
Yeah.
I said, well, haven't you heard of Catholic? He says, oh. I said, that's my faith. I said, do you go to church? Oh, no, my wife goes to church. I don't go to church.
Yeah.
But now I didn't know that there are people who have relationships like where a wife can go to church, but the man doesn't believe in God. But this man retired, and I was going to see him some years later. And as I was going to see him, because he was a friend at work, right? He was my colleague. I had nothing against him because he's not Christian or anything. He's my friend. He's my colleague. He's a good friend. He liked me. That's why he asked me about what's that in me. I was going to see him, and on the way to going to see him, I met with an accident. The first and the last accident, hopefully, in my life. And we almost turned turtle, but we're back on our four wheels.
You mean like as in going round
we almost
upside down?
Yeah, we almost went upside down.
When you say we, you and your wife?
My family. That was the first time in our life we were going for an outing, only the family, the four of us. And this is where God's hand comes into the picture.
Your wife and your two
My wife
daughters?
and my two daughters.
Oh, wow.
Now, the story was we were going to see this man.
Yeah.
For the first time, he was living far out into a countryside, and we were on this gravel road, and it was wet and dry, and so I think the wheels picked up a little muck, and we skid and lost control. Car was on four wheels, and then I got injured, broke a little bone in my wrist, and my wife was shaken, my children were shaken, and we were, but the wheel got jammed, you know, the bumper got stuck on the wheel. I pulled it out in spite of the injury and all that, and we could drive, praise God.
Wow.
We were driving back, and I said, I must give him a call and talk to him and tell him, I'm sorry, we can't come, we have to go back.
Wow.
And
So you
believe me-
managed to turn the car over?
No, the car didn't turn over. It hit the bank. We would have almost turned over.
Oh,
but
I
we
see.
came back on our feet.
Oh, I see.
So that's what I'm saying. That is God's hand. You have to
Wow.
know where God
Yeah,
works.
so-
we could have been on our backs. That
Yes.
would be really difficult. You know,
Yes,
and nobody was going to come and help us.
I know, you could have
And
stranded.
it was an accident-prone spot probably, because when we passed the corner, we saw many cars bashed and broken and down in a little yard
So
there.
you all were safe
So
from
we were
that.
safe. So God's hand at work. But where I'm coming from is the story of this man now, remember? We were driving back home and I called him. And I couldn't get him. He was not answering the phone. There was his residence. And then I reached Auckland, back to home. And I tried to call him again. And I called him. I said, Peter. And his name is Peter. Peter, the man who God gave the reins of the church. Isn't it? Peter, thou art the rock. And I said, Peter, I'm sorry, but you know, I'm already back in Auckland. I didn't come to meet you. I said, I tried calling you. He says, yeah, I had been to church. Can you believe that he
Yeah.
had made a turnaround and started going to church with his wife?
Wow.
So see, when God works in people, we come under attack, isn't it? Because I was the one that God used to tell Peter about me being Catholic and going to church. And he said, oh, the wife goes, and he was not interested. But now he is retired and he has made a turnaround and he was at church.
Oh, wow.
But the funny thing, and people say, oh, it's spooky, and you know, uncanny. Oh, what was that? He said, you know, I had a hunch that something was wrong with you when I was in church. He said, I thought that I hope you're safe, and I said a little prayer for you, you know.
Wow.
Now, what
So
is
your
that
prayer-
testimony?
Yes.
When God is at work
Yeah.
for our great,
Yes.
to save
Yeah.
us, and I'm
I
living
might
here
have to
how many
pause
years
you.
later? Probably, I'm living actually a
Yeah.
whole life. I have got a full life story.
Jared, I might have to pause you there because we're going to go for a break. But it's so interesting what you're
Yeah, praise
saying,
God.
and
So that is
after a
just one
few,
incident,
yeah.
you know.
So thank you
many-
for that.
Pleasure, thank you.
We've got to go for a break now, but stay with us, and we'll be back after the break.
Blow till I hear but breath of the Spirit flowing in me. Blow, blow till I hear but breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, I'm Geraldine Lee. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. Our guest today is Gerard Pereira, and he's the Assistant Director and Assistant Production Manager of Men of Assisi, and he also has been a chorus member and one of the main chorus members. Welcome back.
Thank you, Geraldine.
You were sharing about your journey, because that was what sort of brought you to the musical in a sense, and you were in a near-death experience with your family.
Yeah.
So I hear that you've had quite a few near-death experiences.
Well, I mean, the first story about me being alive today is that I was a miracle baby at 8 months. So I had this kind of a tumor, and my mother had taken me to the doctor, and so she took me to the doctor, a little village in India where we lived. And she asked the doctor, what is this little tumor on my baby's head? And he said, oh, these tumors, you know, they're dangerous. They can grow.
Wow.
And at age 12 or 13, the tumor presses on the brain, the child's head bloats, and the child can die at age 12 or 13.
Wow.
And so my mother was very distressed. But of course, being a fervent, strong Catholic, she comes out of the clinic.
Yes.
And as she comes out of the clinic, she sees another mother with a child. And the mother of the child, we knew each other in the village, you know, I mean, parents knowing each other in a small little village. And she asked, what's wrong with your child? And that lady shows her child with the same thing, a tumor.
Oh.
And so my mother waits there to see what the doctor will tell this lady, whether he's going to tell her the same treatment.
I see.
And so she goes in and she comes out and she tells, and oh, I forgot to tell you, the doctor said that to get rid of this tumor, you have to operate the child to remove the tumor.
Oh.
Otherwise, the child's head will bloat and, you know, die at age 12, 13. So you have to operate to remove the tumor.
Sounds very complex. Me being a nurse, I know it's a complex operation, very serious.
Yes. So this doctor, so my mother goes and waits out in the waiting room, and then this lady comes out and she says, how can doctors tell us to operate these little babies. It's not right, isn't it?
Yes.
How can you operate these babies to do
Yeah.
this? And both of them go their own way.
Uh-huh.
Both the mothers.
Ah.
The difference, I don't know whether it is a difference or whether it's both the mothers went to church. But I know that my mother says that she fervently took me to the church, the Catholic church there, Our Lady of Luz Church in Orlem, Malad, Mumbai.
Ah, Mumbai.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest parishes in Asia.
Yeah, famous place.
Yeah. And there was a legendary story about, somebody praying in the church and there was a storm. And they saw the statue of Our Lady move and the storm stopped. This is what my mother says was a legendary story in that parish, And so she took me and kept me at the feet of Our Lady and asked for prayers that I be healed.
Wow.
And then she took me back home. And the next day the tumor had gone.
That is incredible.
So she took me to the doctor and she showed me to the doctor. The doctor says, being a Catholic, all that I can say, it's a miracle.
That's
But
fantastic.
it's like he has to say something because the tumor is gone in a day. And because you went to church, his mother told the story, so her faith has made me whole.
That's
you see?
beautiful.
Her faith and her prayers for me. Now, the story doesn't end there. The story ends with the other child. The other child was my classmate in school. And his name was Malcolm Lobo.
Right, so he grew up.
He grew up and he died at age 12, 13. That was a confirmation of what the doctor had said
that
would be if you didn't remove the tumor and you didn't operate. So I'm living here so many years later to tell the story.
Yes, so you
and
feel
God
very
is
grateful.
the only instrument and the story in this story of mine. Has made me to be His instrument by
That's
my
why
story
you have
for
that
His
joy.
glory. So that's why my story for His glory has to be written. There's nothing else that I can say, but this story is told by my mother. Why would she take so much of trouble to tell a story about two children? Now, I came to know about this boy dying because he was in my class. I was quite of age to know that we both had the same problem.
Yes.
So that's why I say, that I got saved in that accident, God had a hand. I got saved as a child, God has a hand. And I have had a heart attack in 2009.
Oh, no.
And God has His hand there too. I have a testimony. And that's where I composed a song which He gave me. I'll just sing one line of it.
Yes. We're coming close to the end, but
Because
probably
at the
a
end
couple
of,
of
the day,
lines will fit
at
in.
the end of the day, our story culminates for His glory.
Yes.
And this song has a message that we all have to ask Him to be able to be acceptable to Him. And this song is called Lord Accept Me. Lord, accept me as I come before You now. I want to be where You are, where You are, where You are. I want to be.
It's been beautiful. I'm sorry to have to stop you.
Last line of the story.
I'm sorry
we
to
all
have
want
to
to be where He is, isn't it? So that's the line of the song. But that was with my third miracle when I got saved on the table whilst going for the heart attack treatment.
That's incredible.
And that's why He brought me to the play at the end. That's my most recent achievement. Praise God for meeting you and your dad and the whole cast and your whole family.
Yes.
And I believe that God has His purpose for His greater purpose. He is going to use us, and that's why we are here.
Yes.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
We've come to the end of our program, but it's been great, and thank you very much for coming along and joining our program.
Thank you, Geraldine. A pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for watching Spirit of Life. Join us next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.